Welcome, everybody, and welcome for those watching later on at home. This is our live founder discussion for Personal AI with Personal AI founder and CEO, Simon Kauniganti. Simon, very happy to have you on and excited to be here. So appreciate you taking the time.
Thanks a lot, Dan. It's exciting to be here.
Awesome. Well, I think maybe to kick it off, I think AI is probably maybe the most widely reported on topic right now in tech, certainly now, maybe ever in history. It's a very broad topic. Would you be able to give us maybe your definition of what is AI and then how personal AI either fits into that or kind of breaks that mold?
Yeah, my definition of AI is essentially an intelligence that is, representative of a specific, piece of knowledge, right? Specifically around the personal AI itself, our core thesis was, can we create a model that is grounded in one person's facts, opinions, and identity that they own, that they control as well? The problem that we were aiming for is access. Back in 2020, my desire was to emotionally as well as intellectually connect with a lost co-founder of my previous company. And he passed away because of pancreatic cancer, and I learned tons from him. And then I had this huge poster on the wall that says, like, what would Larry do? And then over a period of time, I constantly desired, I wish there was Larry's AI, right? So I think from a general understanding, we do have general knowledge that exists out there in the world that is becoming more and more accessible, back in the .com era and then to the Google search and now the AI. So I think AI from a very broad perspective is only going to speed up the process of learning that is available generally. But at the same time, now with personal AI, like unlock the intelligence and the memories kind of locked into one person, right? So it's kind of how we define personal AI. There's a lot of different, I guess, definitions around the assistants and the agents and the LLMs and the PLMs. But in short, the goal or the purpose of the personal AI is to represent an individual that is grounded into their own memory.
And just for this may be a very basic concept, but I think people are probably most familiar with something like OpenAI and ChatGPT and how that all works. So something based in someone's memory, how would that differ from those larger models, for example?
Yeah, I think it's no different than, accessing the internet versus accessing your own knowledge, right? Or accessing a, trusted knowledge that is sitting next to you, such as Jerry. OpenAI and ChatGPT has definitely gave clarity to the market, right? Even back in 2021, when we start talking to investors are like trying to figure out what our architecture looks like, it was pretty challenging to, figure out what exactly are we building and why are we building, for what reasons, and what kind of UX that we'll be building. So the idea of large language models is basically trained on the internet of knowledge that exists out there, such as, you can go to Google search and then search for information and land a particular website and seek that information. However, you cannot make a phone call to Jerry and then ask his opinions, or you cannot make a phone call to Chris, right? What we are trying to create is that communication medium, that medium that now, given the increasing data capture abilities from an individual vantage standpoint, it doesn't have to be just the platforms who are creating those models, but as much as individuals can have their own personal models as well. Because, it's pretty fascinating, right? Even the hardware side of things, they're getting more and more closer to our bodies, into our homes. There isn't a minute in our day that we don't capture our data. But still, in 2024, large portions of the data is still captured in big platforms and silos, right? So we want to flip that narrative and then give something to the people where you have your own model, you have your own agent that can then negotiate with the larger models that can be belonging to the service, that can be belonging to the platforms or to other people as well. Right. So yeah, so that's how we see the world differently. But I think there is a good synergy and convergence right now. So there's a good time to be building and good time to be at a point where we are having a platform that we can, solve people's problems.
Yeah. What would be?
I'll throw out.
Go ahead, Chris. Yeah, please.
I'll throw out an example. It's going to be a little bit of a trite example, but I think it illustrates the point perfectly. Is that we're all used to using our navigation apps, and the navigation apps are trained on the sum of all the drivers on the road and everything like that. So it sends you down an optimal path for things like distance or whatnot. But I really hate sitting in traffic. I will go up and double the length of my trip and the duration of my trip to stay out of sitting in traffic on the interstate. So what you're creating here is, instead of something that's a slave to the sum of all knowledge, that is like, but this is the optimum path. Why are you deviating off the path? Go back, go back, go back.
Yeah.
It's like, no,
Yeah.
no, no. Detour for me because you know I hate sitting in traffic.
Right. Totally. Totally. That's a great example. I also gave like simple examples such as, food and Airbnb experiences, right? So, if I go, essentially like, open table, right? I have choices based on my food preferences. And then I'm, constantly like looking back and forth on what are the things that I would like, and open table is giving me suggestions. Now, good, because there is some sort of personalized experience in there. However, there isn't a mechanism where my personal AI kind of knows my food preferences much more. And then as I go into the places, I would want that ultra personal experience of what I eat and what I don't eat, and what are the restaurants I would want to go after, with the compared not just within the restaurants available in open table, but in the wider space, right? So yeah, so I think we'll get to a point where our agents or our AIs will be, doing those jobs for us by, conversation, conversing with, Airbnb AI or OpenTable AI.
And Simon, do you kind of see that as inevitable? Like, to me, it sounds, correct me if I'm wrong, it sounds like your thesis is kind of just like technology. Computers used to be massive and they slowly got more personal and personal computers. And
that's
now
like
we
my
have
go-to
mobile
example,
devices,
right?
right?
I
Right
mean,
now we've got mobile devices in our pockets. So is that kind of your thesis? That's everyone's going to eventually have their own personal AI,
yeah, I mean,
to quote the name.
even long time, not long time ago, when we had our personal computer, it came with like a base operating system, and then you would load up with all the apps that you would want, you would load up with all the documents that you would want, and still, this thing that is sitting on my table belongs to me. It's an asset to me. If I want to break it, I can break it, but it's mine, right?
Right.
And the concept of the LLM is no different than what happened in the hardware space with the mainframes, right? I used to go to an institution or an organization. I go in, and then I carry this small floppy disk, which is your context window today, right? And then put in the mainframe, and then I get some work done, and then get out. And that's what like large language models offers today, which is great. It works for generic, use cases, accessibility in regards to the models itself and the intelligence itself. But we cannot put that LLM or mainframe in our homes, in our pockets. How much ever you try to squeeze it, it's not going to be personal enough.
Right.
So I think just, we are here to offer a contrary approach to the idea of AI when it comes down to personal and small nature of it.
And do you think, I think a lot of people, you're either all in on AI or the concept kind of scares you. Do you think this is more like empowering, like giving people back their data is more empowering that way?
Look, I mean, I wouldn't do it any other way.
Yeah.
So, I mean, the most interesting thing is, this core idea of an asset, right? What do we buy today? We buy things, right? In the digital world, we are not yet to the place where the concept of digital assets is embraced fully, because yeah, sure, we had blockchain, we had NFTs. It served like a good group of market where a piece of an asset is clearly represented to a particular owner, but we are still not there. So the idea of, hey, there is all this presence of me, which is my data, which is my asset on the internet. Now there is this model that actually belongs to me. I get to control it. I get to download it, and it is working in my favor, and it is my digital asset that lives on the internet, is mind blowing. So I think more people to the power. More power to the people. So it's kind of what we want to push.
Simon, can you expand on that? Where is the data stored? And if it's decentralized on the blockchain, is it still not centralized?
Data does not reside on the blockchain. It still resides on the cloud. So the three elements of the data currently is the memory is discrete and the model is discrete, right? Currently, it's not downloadable, but we are working to a point where you can download data and put it on your personal computer and mobile phones as well, right? And the second thing is legally. So legally, we basically give away the data ownership to individuals' AI. So the companies does not own it. And we do not merge the data, because in most AI companies, there is an advantage for merging the data, but we figured out alternative approaches to have the reinforcement learning and the feedback loop, by engaging the people itself. So we are out of the equation. So legally, everybody gets to own their own data and memory. And eventually when you have edge, I think Chris was also alluding to, we discussed like back and forth, what are the things that we're working on right now in regards to the compliance, such as SOC 2 and NIST and going through the process and audit. But eventually the goal is to just get things on edge, and that will be private and secure to your device.
So is it safe to say that there is no monetization strategy for data, user data? This is
Not for the company, not
for
for
the
the company, but individual people can monetize their own AI.
individuals can monetize their own. Is
Correct.
that going to be facilitated through you, or they would have to figure out how to monetize their own?
A combination of both. So currently, so some of our clients, we actually help them take the model, put it behind the paywalls for a specific group of audience and clients that they're working, right? So in a way, this is an asset. This becomes a product in their product list of products, right? And there is definitely a huge economic value, right? But I think it's a different business model. We sell people their model, the ability or the option to create and train their model is what we sell, not the data.
You've created a process by which people can generate the data that represents them, or whatever facet of them they want to put into the AI. What you're monetizing, if I understand the whole thing correctly, is you're monetizing the process, you're monetizing the model that enables that process to work, as well as the service connections to services external to your PLM. For example, the integration with a large language model to fill in gaps in knowledge, or general knowledge.
Yeah, that's great. That's great. Perfect. And it's not existing in the platform yet, but I also foresee a world where individual people like Suman Kanaganti may be okay for these individual LLM AIs to advertise, their services to my AI. So if my AI is kind of lured into, picking one of them, but there has to be some sort of a economic kickback into it, because now all of a sudden there is this agent or this model that is working in my favor, and there is all these bidders out there. So I'm not locked into one single. I mean, it's all about choice, right? It's all about optionality. And we are trying to say the optionality and the control has to belong to the people.
And I imagine that last week, the headline, and I don't know all the technical details behind it, the headline from OpenAI was that they're releasing memories. And I can't imagine that's in their master plan where they're going to let you control your own data. That your data is being fed presumably right into the model to spit back and train based off of that. Would that be fair to say?
Yeah. I mean, it's fair, right? And it's fascinating. It's like me and Sharon were like in the office and we saw the headlines like, go, right? In a way, we celebrate that moment, right? Because we've been pushing on like memory-based architecture, memory-based models, for almost like 3 to 4 years. Yeah, sure, we are not as big as OpenAI, but we are setting the path, right? We were on a path to validate, and the market is validating it. There is always a market for personal AI. There's always going to be a market for personal AI, because this is a platform or a model that is only designed to work in your favor, right? There should be large language models also in the world, because there will be like big platforms and service providers that will capitalize on their models too. So I don't think it's OpenAI versus personal AI as much as the use cases and the needs of what these large language models will serve are different, or whom it will serve are different than what personal AIs and small language models will serve.
So
can you tell me what is the immediate use case right now for personal AI that's actionable, so people could go in there and sign up and they know this is what they can get from this?
Yep.
That looks like today versus what that might look like, say, 2 years from now.
Yep. Our current use case is communication, right? So every day people deal with lots of different various communications. Simple things such as, hey, I need to tap into your mind. Hey, I have a question that I need to ask you. Hey, I get an inbound email or text messages, team communication, audience engagement. There's a whole sort of like communication that happens. The most
Help
interesting
me
thing is,
understand, is this between me and my personal AI, or is me sharing my agent with others? Who's the communication happening with?
that's the trippy part. That communication could be you with yourself as well, right? Like, for example, me, Suman Kanaganti, if my AI other day was in maintenance for like 10 minutes and I was like fretting, I was like, I couldn't do work because I consult my AI quite a bit, often for ideation, for researching, for even the idea of like taking the general knowledge, but seeing through the vantage point of me, because I have a job to do. I have to build personal AI. So what does a specific topic mean to me is fast forwarded, like, exponentially in terms of my ability to comprehend a new topic, a new skill. So that communication could be you with yourself because you're tapping in and you're extracting and unlocking it out, but it could be with other people as well, right? So when, if literally, Chris was asking questions and I was consulting with my AI, because I know we talked about like specific protocols, but it's not clear. It's on my head. So I consulted my AI, and then I consulted Sharon's AI, and they said, Sharon, your AI has a good response. Like you should respond. Chris is looking for your response. Now, human to human, and then comes human to services. Human to services isn't there yet. In other words, I think over a period of time, as the company evolves, our distribution strategy would be how can personal AI becomes like a default standard when you open an Uber app, an Airbnb app, an open table app. Instead of you making API calls to them, they should be making an API calls to your personal AI. And based on their recency, based on what's happening in your life, based on what your personal AI has to offer, they will provide better service to you, right? So that's the eventual goal. The world should be adapting to, before they talk to you, they should be talking to your AI, like very similar to you go to a website and you talk to a chatbot before you talk to the service, right? Why can't the service do the same thing? So yeah, communication is the primary use case, and we are focusing specifically on domain experts because there is a demand and supply problem and the impact is high. Demand and supply problem as in you have an individual and they have a specific expertise and they have tons of demand where they have to serve hundreds of people, but they don't have time. But at the same time, you have to have that set of standards because they're licensed, they're certified, and they have a duty and they have, serving public, right? And that's where personal AI is running right now. Because when it comes down to accuracy, when it comes down to identity, IP, like, deploying and then just multiply that person like 10x, tenfold. That's their, tons of value. I mean, we went like back and forth, it took almost like 6 to 9 months or so, like figure out exactly where is our core market. And it just came down to domain experts where there is a mismatch of, demand and supply.
So I don't know if you can give us any specifics on that. So when I think about that, so I teach venture, and let's just say I've got 100 students, and can I just create an agent, sign up, create an agent? I probably have to autofill, or I have to fill in a bunch of information. I got to fill my agent with information. And then once I've filled it with enough information, I can open it up to my students who could then chat with my agent for office hours as opposed to me having to take Zoom calls. Is that?
Yes, sir.
You're thinking?
Yes, and yes. And it happens today already.
It happens today. Okay. Yeah. All right. And then, so tell me about the process of getting my data into my agent. I mean, what does that look like? Is that a work in progress? Or?
It sounds like you stole the new customer, Suman.
Yes. Speaking of customers, it's fascinating, just like talking to the customers and then talking their use cases. And when you can say yes, that's the beauty, right? Like, yes, I can solve your problem. The process, Jerry, is twofold. One, you can do it yourself. And then two, we will do it for you, right? We are like a very people-oriented company, right? And we wanted to take, I think we were solving for something that is likely people are still not there yet. It's likely another 2 years or 3 years before the idea of like, I want to train my own model, right? So I think we were like a little bit immature if you were like trying to create a system where people can train their own models. The concept isn't there.
Mm-hmm.
So either way, we created it so people can invest time. And what we have seen is if you are indeed investing time, 10 to 20 hours or so, to understand the basic concepts of what does a memory mean, what are the tools that I have, how do I kind of structure and plan my personas and my data, and go through the webinar or training course and then get your model in, thumbs up. Like people are extremely happy. But obviously, we're living in an AI world where you come in and then you want to press a button and then everything is magical, right? The magic, that is not there as of yet, right? The one of the struggles is also that magic is locked in the platforms right now. So we cannot like just, as a small person, like on the road, you cannot just create the magic because we got to work with all these big giants to help us create the magic. And the second, so that yes, that procedure exists, and we do have a training course that we basically give away for. It's good for students, educators, small business owners who has time, who is willing to learn, and influencers and freelancers. It's good for them. And the second model right now, which is succeeding and generating a lot of revenue for the company, is we do everything for them, right? Because they have a problem, they need a solution, they're willing to put on the money because there is good ROI. And basically we work with them, get all the data and push it in, and then deliver the AI.
So like I personally never found much in the way of value in journaling. I've had a lot of therapy over the years, so I understand intellectually the value of journaling and everything. But at the end of the day, it's a process of write once, and like how do I search it? Well, like what am I actually going to derive from it? This to me actually changes the the value there, because now if you have a service that is you actually have a value creation as a result of your journaling. The AI, you can potentially, in some arbitrary end state, end up doing all your journaling to the AI and actually have the AI reflect back to you. So so I also see a significant use case in therapeutic environments, which is compelling.
So, I mean, of course, I cannot disclose the names, but there are two organizations who has like hundreds of therapists, and they serve like millions of people. So then they don't have any life basically. So we're working to basically create and roll out, all individual specific, because those therapists also like have specific clients, and every client is very unique in themselves. And the cognitive stress that they go through is also extreme, right? So now like apply the personal AI in therapy and give them the ability. You still don't lose the connection with the client because you're basically augmenting yourself with it. So yeah, I mean, it's great. To your point, Chris, one more thing is this core idea of you are continuing to journal. Okay, where is that value? Where is the value? And suddenly personal AI comes in. And the value is only accruing, meaning it accrues in value over a period of time. There isn't a digital asset that I know of that I am married to, other than my own personal AI, that accrues in value over a period of time. I think that's cool. That's really cool.
So I'd like to jump in because the idea is there, and some of the concerns are, talk to your road mapping, some of the compliance and cybersecurity concerns. I'd love to get into that topic further another time, because this is truly stated in my commentary, but creating a new biometric. And biometric, as we all know, biometric data is generally treated and is becoming treated more strictly than other data privacy, concerns and everything like that, and rightly so, because it is you. And once your biometrics are compromised, you can't use biometrics anymore. That's it.
Yeah.
So with that as context, I look to kind of one of my questions about the monetization, the scaling, is that when you have an OpenAI coming in and starting to build a memory-based model, and yes, it's a closed system, but do they have economies of scale that you guys can't, or that you guys will potentially have a challenge achieving in terms of competition? Now, for example, you talk about the mission being to democratize AI. If they can create a solution that they can monetize for $50 a month instead of your current $400 a month, that's accessible to a whole lot more people.
Yeah, and by the way, it's $40 per month. It's $400 per year.
I'm sorry, for $400 a year. I said monthly, but I meant a year. I apologize.
And we had like the free model as well. I think two comments on that one, right? I think one, we definitely have to go open source when it comes down to the memory, right? So the memory units are there. The memory units are all like architected in the system. We got to do work to get to a point where the memory transformers are out there in the library for people to build for themselves. That needs to happen. So, I mean, speaking of milestones in work, that needs to happen for sure. And the second thing is every big tech, I will guarantee, will have their own personal AI experiences. From Microsoft to Google to Facebook, everybody will have it. And the single most important thing from an individual perspective, individual business owner perspective, is this core idea of interoperability. Because the platforms will continue to serve their businesses. And their business model will never be able to fulfill the desire or the business models of personal AI. So I like today morning, I got a text from one of my customers. Like, hey, dude, like, Gemini has 1 million tokens now, is it a threat to personal AI? I said, no, we actually celebrated that because every time there is a large language model making good research moves, it only is going to help the backends of personal AI, because at the end of the day, we are still going to forefront. We are surrounding the individual person. The PLMs will be surrounding the individual person. So any research that happens in the backend is only going to boost the experience to the people at the forefront. So, I mean, I think, yes, there will be competition, but there is tons of problems. There's tons of markets for a personal AI to not $1 billion, but to become a multi-billion-dollar company, right? So it's not like, take it all, but it's actually focusing on where exactly personal AI will solve the core unique problems and then become sticky. Because again, the asset, right? The asset is continuing to grow. We know that people who have created like only 1,000 memories, it's only like 500 documents. They stick with their AI forever. We know that we have the data, right? So that asset is going nowhere for people. So you can create memory in OpenAI, you can create memory in Google, you can create memory in Facebook, but they are not going to combine and give you one thing to work in your favor.
So if I could read between the lines in your message here, part of what I'm hearing is that you're small and agile enough to be able to take advantage of all of the institutional research that goes on by the big companies. It's like the old IBM. Nobody ever got fired for hiring IBM back in the day, but they did all the research. The Bell Labs did all the research, but there was plenty of room for startups in the computer field to move fast, create, point solutions by taking advantage of the more or less public, true research that was being performed with the billions of dollars by the big companies.
Totally. And we don't have to even fight it. We embrace it.
This might be a very basic clarification. Just you're also referencing the idea that so personal AI with your personal language model, you're pulling from your own data, but also filling in the gaps or bringing in information from ChatGPT or OpenAI rather, or Gemini or those other platforms. You're able to pull from them into that, plus augmenting with your own personal data.
Yeah, and that's the beauty. So, we talked about $40 per month, right? There is one secret in the $40 per month. With $40 per month, yes, you will get your personal language model, but guess what? You basically have access to all the large language models underneath it. So people who pay $40 per month for just that access, now we are saying, hey guys, look, you have this plus all of this, because that's how the system functions right now. If you don't have it in your memory, then we cancel large language model, you get the response back, you still get the response, and it will be reflected in personal scores, and you get to choose, or you get to decide if you want to personalize it and add it to your memory or not, right? And that's the reason why I think it's almost like it's good. Like if there was no LLMs and I'm selling personal AI right now, it would still be very hard for people to comprehend. It's like, oh, okay, but I don't know this topic. Like, how much information I need to have. Now it's very seamless, right?
Right.
You have like good of both worlds, and the experience is very seamless.
So if anyone's out there trying to decide, do I get ChatGPT Plus or Gemini? Neither. It's personal AI.
You get 2, 3 for the price of one.
Right.
I mean, you literally have all these AI friends within the platform, and there is, that's the next level of topic, right? This core idea of like having this network, like having a network of people communicating with each other. Because what is the core mission? The core mission is reducing the barriers and increasing the access without, status, without, whether they are living or passed away, or without geographic changes or language barriers, right? We came a long way, like from phone calls to the internet to now. But now with this, I mean, it's even more closer. So yeah, so there are like Gemini friends, Cloud friends, Llama friends. Everybody is available, technically as friends within the personal AI ecosystem.
Do you think that's going to change at some point? Do you think they're going to start walling off?
Why?
I don't know. I mean, everyone tries to build a monopoly. Look what Apple's done with the App Store, trying to, sort of keep competition friendly, but they're going to pay a premium to be on their platform.
Yeah. I mean, go ahead.
If I can just extend off of that, Jerry, and tell me if I'm deviating, but I think we're in the same path. But the idea that right now, having your service affordably integrating with their services it provides a net benefit to them. It's almost like a loss leader for them. But when at some point you hit an inflection point, and then a critical point in that graph where the value proposition changes, and it's a better competitive moat for them to start jacking up the prices of your integration or something along those lines, in which case your value proposition starts to break. How do you envision that risk? How do you assess that risk, and how do you mitigate that risk?
I follow now. So here's the thing, right? We took 4 years to build this thing because there's also one more reason for it. And the reason was we as a company, as well as the value that we create to the people, we do not want to depend on any single platform, even including the native applications. Our investors fought with me a lot. Why don't you simply create a Chrome plugin, right? Well, what if the Chrome plugin dies? Why don't you simply do the Twitter use case first? Well, we already know Elon Musk killed Twitter, use cases, and 10 startups died. One of them was my friend. So the value is not that we have Gemini and we have, OpenAI and everybody, within the personal AI ecosystem as friends. That's only a convenience factor, right? It's because we are bringing in the network. The value is the personal AI, and nobody is going to take away that personal AI as long as I'm AI from the people, right? So we are adding more convenience by bringing everybody in. And if, for example, Llama is not open source anymore and they decide to shut it down, fine, we are not impacted. We are great. We are good.
So if I extend the concept and extend your answer a little bit, might be summarized as, well, you've already trained your own agent, and at the end of the day, your core value proposition is to create your own agent that representative of you. You're Friday or Jarvis, to coin off of Marvel, but you've created that, and even if I'll say the affordable binding of services goes away, at the end of the day, as the technology matures, your agent could potentially go analog, so to speak, and go, well, you know what? Maybe my agent could just go be doing the equivalent of a keyboard search that I'm doing, just do it for me to get the answer at the end of the day.
Totally. I mean, the value is not bundling, right? The bundling is just a convenience. They are coming in for personal AI.
So, I mean, you look at the market, clearly the market is here and it's going to grow exponentially. I don't think anyone can argue that. I don't necessarily think right now makes sense to have a big discussion on unit economics for where you're at. But I would like to know, what are the biggest barriers? What are the biggest points of friction you're dealing with right now that's preventing, broader adoption?
Yeah. No, I mean, please ask me about unit economics because we cracked that pretty hard.
Okay, well, you can share.
Let's dive into it. Let's do it.
I mean, the short answer is, for the same use case, for a fine-tuned LLM or for a GPT bot to solve it, we are 40x more cost effective.
40 times more.
Yeah, as of right now. I'm sure, it will reduce over a period of time. The technology catches up. Well, guess what? I don't want to build a company where 30% of my money that is being raised is purely going on keeping up with the GPU clusters without adding any value, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, you can go, infection route, raise a, $1 billion and then basically get, tons and millions of people doing math problems on the LLM is great. But that's not what we are here for. We are here for a system that is going to sustain and economically scale for every single individual person on the planet. If you are able to do that, then there is no scalability problem, right? So, we can run faster and then try to be super famous, super, fast. It doesn't make any sense. The market is here to stay. The people are here to stay. 8 billion will only become 10 billion. So anyway, that's my unit economics thing. It's counterintuitive. It's intuitive in terms of thinking through how we think about the business.
And
the biggest scaling factor right now is the ease, right? Unfortunate reality is historically people have been plugged into the platforms, and the platforms doesn't want to give up, right? Believe it or not, I get like every customer every day asking about, can I get this data from this particular platform? I won't name it, and then push to my personal AI. Well, guess what? The answer is no. Like, who is going to fight that battle? Right. So, but at least if you have a starting point right now, and there are, techniques to essentially have like users take control of the data that is being worked on like for several years, not even like, oh, last month I, uploaded this particular note into my social media. No, this been using this for like 2 decades almost. I think that's the biggest barrier right now. Right. And I think domain experts make complete sense because for them, the IP is not locked in platforms. You see, like, so that means their value is faster. The time to value is faster because they kept it. So in a way, all of a sudden, there is an advantage to the people who kept their IP for themselves because they have control and they have access to it. So yeah, so I think the mass market, there are two things. One, we need to get onto the edge so that where unit economics is not good, but it is basically marginal cost is zero, that we need to get. And the second thing is, creating mechanisms for people to just like, push a button and get all the data that they own authentically that belongs to them, get into their model. So I think those are the two gating factors.
And what just remind, or what are the data sources that I would load my agent with?
Text data sources as of today. So your conversations, your emails, your documents, your authored content, autobiography, backgrounds, profiles, podcasts, anything that digitally you have, say, put the data out there historically, but on an ongoing basis as well.
So can I just like data dump all my files from Dropbox in? Like, there it is?
Yeah, if that is a true representation of you, yeah, sure, you can. Yeah. We recently pushed out like Drive and OneNote. We are pushing out Gmail. We're just like fighting a lot with the approval process a lot right now. So that is clearly fight.
I can't help but keep thinking that I'm just seeing, you guys are all too young for this, but the movie Weird Science.
Which one?
Weird Science.
Okay. Somebody please type in the chat. I'm not.
Chris, type that in for me, will you?
Yeah, no problem. I got you.
I haven't seen it, but I know which movie I'm watching tonight.
Yeah, just
outstanding movie.
So it's fascinating because I hear all kinds of science fiction and movies whenever we start talking, and everybody has something new that I have no clue about. Speaking of knowledge.
Yeah,
okay, I haven't
Jerry,
seen
this is pretty weird science.
Yeah, pretty weird science.
Jerry, what's the synopsis and how does it relate to this case for those who, like me, maybe haven't seen it?
You guys wanted to feed their idea of the perfect woman into a computer. So they started shoving all sorts of pictures and data and commercials and whatever in. All of a sudden, poof, she's created.
In this case, the perfect person is yourself, though. How beautiful is that?
I'm watching IMDb, I guess, trailer.
Oh, funny.
Sounds like fun.
I've said for a long time that I would be my own best friend if I could clone myself. And Simon, you just gave me that option.
Yeah, right. That's a bargain for a new best friend. Suman, I know we're probably coming up on time, so I want to be respectful of it. But one point on the unit economics, I think it might be worth revisiting just to put it into basic context. Because I from the context that I have in personally, you're saying that your model is 40x more efficient and more cost effective than the large models. Is it fair to say that's because ChatGPT, Gemini, all those other models, they're basically constantly running computing power for basically endless use cases, whereas you guys are running smaller, more precise models for specific use cases. I'm probably getting a lot wrong there, but in the simplest sense, is that fair to
I
say,
think
or
from
is
the
that
simplest
somewhat
sense,
adjacent?
yeah, I mean, it does make sense, right? So large language models are architected to predict the next text. So by virtue of it, you have, tons of data behind the scenes. And when you're trying to personalize it, the way to personalize it is push all the personal context into the context window. And the larger the context window, the costlier it gets for the LLMs to, basically use the compute and extract it. For us, it's the opposite, right? We by default go into the memory-based system, a memory-based model, and then fall back into the LLM, which is the generative prediction, which may not be accurate. So yeah, so that's the reason why, like, how the fundamental unit economics works on the compute layer is what gives us that advantage.
Got it. That's helpful.
It's externalizes the compute expenses, functionally speaking.
Right.
One just marketing question. I don't know if I'm sure you're familiar with Dropbox, but how they grew exponentially. The basic model of uploading a file and then sending a link to someone. And so whenever you'd send a link, you would get an opportunity to download Dropbox and get 2, megabytes or whatever, or 10 megabytes of free storage or something. And it allowed them to really grow very quickly through a network. Do you envision at some point where, like, I create my agent and then I, can offer them my email handle, and my emails like connect with my agent, they can connect with it, and then you could, in turn offer someone who sees it like their own opportunity to get, their own AI.
Yeah.
Agent.
I think you are onto something. I think the referral network, I think even if we just simply stick to the storage, because right now the revenue is attached to the memory as well as it's attached to, how many places you can take your AI to. So when we are ready for mass market, like, hey, you get an AI and you get some memory alongside with it. And if you refer, you get additional memory to it. I think that model, yeah, I think that there could be a great model in there. We have tried like other referral systems, right? And right now, since majority of the revenue is like high ticket items, like high big contracts. But once we start going more and more to the mass markets, I think that model would work really well.
I think I've got that case study about how they grew. If I can find it, I'll email it to you because it's quite interesting.
Yeah, no, I was part of it. I know exactly which one you're talking about. But if there is a case study, I can read through it. That'll be wonderful. But there's something about this idea of, I get my memory. Hey, I'm giving you an opportunity to get your memory as well, like, for extra 25%.
I like this because it is a consumer-facing play.
Yeah, I mean, totally.
I think that's where, it's just, if you get the incentives aligned correctly, I think this is where it could be a multi-billion-dollar opportunity. That's
Yep. And, I have like one blog when we released our Model 1. We're trying to figure out how exactly to communicate it. So we landed on a title that says 8 billion people, 8 billion AIs, right? So it's like very clear, like, no, that is our goal.
Right.
Yes, I mean, of course, there is business and there is, maturation on the models and getting to the edge mass markets. All that is execution. Partly the reason, we are going to the community and like trying to get as much advocacy as possible and, do this education and, talk to people like you for like-minded is the mission is unique. And we cannot win the battle unless and until we have, a group of people, working alongside with us. Because at the end of the day, we are like 15 people. There's only so much we can do. So yeah, so open source, community, small business adoption, and going to the government and having like public facing events, just being okay to show the architecture. I think those are all the things from a marketing and the go-to-markets we have to do. It's been only like 6 months for us to, be out there. And I think largely right now we are shipping as fast as possible the AIs, the demands that we have, right? Because as long as we can create value, even in small stages like right now, then the opportunity expands.
So this is really, at the end of the day, your growth strategy is no different from Microsoft Jerry, you brought up Dropbox, but also I go back to Microsoft and Microsoft's penetration with Windows and the Office products. That you're trying to create a service that is a ubiquitous thing that basically everybody needs and wants to use every day, which ultimately, like now an Office 365 subscription comes with your storage and Office, and you're paying for all your security updates and new features and all that jazz for your $100 a year. That's where you're going, as opposed to the LinkedIn subscription or your OpenAI subscription, where you're paying for the access to the platform, but their ownership of the data and everything also brings additional revenue streams like advertising and data, selling your data and all that other stuff, where they make their big money. You're really kind of like creating the steady state, like, look, we're going to continue developing this service. Hey, here's a new plugin. Here's a new training or updated training process or something like that. But everybody's going to have their subscription and be on their merry way. Is that fair?
That's fair. That's fair. It's analogous is always pretty fascinating, I guess, because once you tie it up, then all of a sudden it's like bingo, it makes sense. No, that's fair. Yeah.
Okay.
I have just one last question, Dan, and then we can, if
Yep.
you've got a question, Simon. So why crowdfunding? Why
The same thing. I need the backers that is beyond ROI. We'll likely do a institutional raise very soon in here. But before we go to institutional raise, we wanted the backing. There is something about community campaigns because they are in it for the mission, not necessarily, yes, there is a ROI as well for sure. Right. But it's an opportunity to actually help the company, right? And be out there, like tell, like, hey, we can, throw in like, marketing dollars on top of the funnel and then, buy like Facebook ads and Twitter ads. Or we recruit like 1,000 people and they probably do a better job, because then the company fundamentally is on the premise of trust, right? It's like, I am accessing Jerry's AI because I trust Jerry and that's what I want to go after. Like there's a fundamental premise of trust. So I want to build that, right? We build that and we build that core foundations are solid. The growth will come. The growth is going nowhere. It's 8 billion people on the planet.
Yeah.
Well, we're not 8 billion people here, but I think there's probably 3 more AIs coming from this. So I really appreciate the time and the additional context. I think it's amazing what you guys are doing. The only, I think, contrary idea I've seen to those larger models, and it's absolutely fascinating. So congratulations on all your progress. I really appreciate you being on here with us, and wish you the best of luck, and we'll have to talk to you soon.
Yeah, I have to say I enjoyed the conversation. So thanks a lot for having me. And the work is only the beginning. So we have a lot more work to do.
Thank you
Absolutely.
very
Look forward to talking and a lot more on your platform.
Sounds good.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Simon.
Thank you.